as traditional religion in India revolved around ritual sacrifice, and the Brahmin are really getting wealthy off it. The Brahmin are really controlling all the traditional religions. And since they're also exempt from taxes in many parts of India, the economy becomes more and more developed as that trade continues to grow and grow and grow. Then, especially from the merchants, what you're going to see is that less people are going to follow that, and they're going to basically challenge the established cultural order. This first appears around the 7th century BCE when the great hero, Vaharama Marava, arrives, and he's born in 540 BCE as a Kshidra. Left home at age 30 to seek salvation and becomes an ascetic, and he wanders around the Ganges River Valley. For about 30 years, he lives a minimalist lifestyle and gets his thoughts, and a group of dedicated disciples get and they form a monastic order called the Jinnah. And the Jinnah means the conqueror. That eventually is going to morph into the Jains, which will eventually morph into the religion of Jainism. They believe everything has a universal soul, and as long as you are trapped in whatever earthly body you are in, and that can be literally anything on earth, there will always be a physical and psychological suffering. The only way to take care of this is purification from selfish behavior that would release people from your imprisoned life and shed your burden of karma. Now, your inspiration for this does come from the Upanishads, so there definitely is some relation to Hinduism still. And a big part of this is Amisha, which is moral respect for all and non-violent things to all. You avoid the extremes and harming things on earth. So, let me say that again. You go to extremes to avoid hurting things on earth, to the point where like you're going to sweep the ground in front of you so you don't harm insects. You're going to strain your drinking water, make sure there's nothing in it. Not surprisingly, you'd go with a vegetarian diet. And all of these things made it possible, so it was really, really, really hard to do. And so what this really is, in another way, is fighting against the caste system, besides the fact that it's basically saying, Brahman, what are you talking about? Is that if everyone has a spirit, the belief of Jainism, it doesn't really make sense for sharp social distinctions with the caste system had formed. So therefore, it's really attractive, especially to the lower castes. Now, the biggest change coming out of this time period is Buddhism. Buddhism starts from Siddhartha Gautama. He's a Kshidra. He's a Kshidra born around 563 BCE, where he is a prince. He lives a very pampered and sheltered life at first, and his family wanted to make sure he didn't see any of the harm in the world. He excels in his study, but then over time comes on, he starts to become dissatisfied with his life, and he escapes out of his castle multiple times. Excuse me. Out of his castle numerous times. And during those walks, he sees first a crippled man, and then a sick man, and a monk. And from those monks, he starts to believe that the monks were very noble, and that everyone should take up an ascetic and wandering a life. And he does. So at 534, he leaves his family in the Ganges River Valley in search for an enlightened life, an explanation for why people start to suffer. At first, he's a hermit, and eventually he's going to sit down under a tree, and he meditates there for 49 days. After 49 days, where he was tempted numerous times from demons, he receives enlightenment. And with that, he understands why there are problems in the world and how he could help eliminate them from the world. So in 528, he announces his doctrine, his beliefs, basically. And this sermon becomes known as the Turning of the Wheel Law. And this begins Buddha's quest to promulgate the law of righteousness throughout, and basically to end suffering. There are disciples out there that are monks that quickly travel in yellow robes throughout the region, and Buddha travels throughout the region as well, trying to preach his doctrine. At age 80, Buddha dies, and he says, according to legend, that decay is inherent in all component things. Work out your salvation with diligence. The basis of that doctrine is the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths. The cause of suffering is desire. The elimination of desire brings an end to suffering. That a discipled life conducted in accordance with the Eightfold Path will bring the elimination of desire. That you should live in a balanced and moderate life. Also, you should have quiet contentment, thoughtful reflection, and disciplined self-control would reduce desire for material goods. Basically, you're getting at here is that Buddha believes that you need to get enlightenment, and to get enlightenment, you need to follow that Eightfold Path, and that you will be reincarnated on this earth. And eventually, when you do find that enlightenment, you will be in nirvana, which is a perfect state of spiritual independence. And that's that bottom bullet down there. Escape the cycle of reincarnation is the goal to attain nirvana. Now, this goes against goes against Hinduism as well, because you don't need the Brahmins to escape this cycle. There's no social distinctions, not as rigorous as Jainism as well. So especially the merchants really like this as well. And here are the Four Noble Truths written out for you. And here are how you accomplish that is you follow the Eightfold Path, which is here. Now, Buddhism is going to morph over time. Notice I never talked about Buddha being a god or anything like that. It's just he was the doctrine that got these principles out there. The early Buddhism is primarily going to spread due to language. The monks and the preachers avoided Sanskrit, which was the language of Hinduism, in favor of the language of the people, known as the vernacular. There are holy sites throughout the Buddhist tradition, and those sites are here. So here are the 8 sites of the holy sites, and they are big time, and they're big time around. People are getting pilgrimage there, and people are going to start to become more and more attracted to Buddhism as time moves forward. The lower castes like it because they are able to not, again, deal with the Brahmin as much. Other things of note here, that the stupas were built, which were very popular to attract people. The shrines are basically attract relics as well. And the monasteries at the time period also become like banks because they are built in just the right spots, and they help organize life in the Indian countryside and help take care of people by allocating land to individuals. And so Buddhism will continue to grow there. And you also have Ashoka. Ashoka is going to convert to Buddhism after his battle at the kingdom of Kalinga. And Buddhism is going to spread there. Even though Ashoka does recognize other religions, Ashoka is a Buddhist, and he preaches those non-violent tendencies towards all. As Buddhism continues to grow and change in India, Mahayana Buddhism is going to start to develop and starts to appeal to people because they believe to be a truly righteous person, you need to give up personal property in Mahayana Buddhism, forsake the search for social standing, and resolutely detach oneself from the charms of the world, basically. And early Buddhists thought that there were numerous physical incarnations stretching out over thousands of years. So Buddhism is going to change. Definitely. I mean, you're going to start to see some people believe that Buddha is divine. Some people are going to start to believe that, such as you're going to have groups of people, the Vajrayavasts, which think that they have achieved nirvana, but then delay actually being in nirvana to help other people attain nirvana. And Buddhism is going to definitely morph over time, but it attracts pilgrims far and wide throughout the world. Probably one of the most famous spots is your Buddhist monastery there, and where Buddhist education starts to really take hold. But Buddhists are not opposed to as well teaching some of the Hindu practices just for an educational purpose. Buddhism is starting to spread all over the place. Well, not surprisingly, you have new religions that are forming to basically counter Hinduism, so Hinduism is going to change. Hinduism is going to change and going to start to develop one god that takes priority over all the rest. Hinduism is definitely polytheistic, but Vishnu becomes the prominent god in basically the same stories earlier that got women to be lower. Here, Hinduism is going to start to see Vishnu become the preserver of the world, who frequently intervenes on behalf of everybody. The big book is also another major piece of literature that's going to get laid hard is the Bhagavad Gita. Is written between 300 BCE and 500 BCE and undergoes several revisions until it finally comes to its final version around 400 CE. It's a dialogue between a Kshidra warrior and a human incarnation of Vishnu. And basically what they're getting here is Vishnu is basically getting teachings out there that the soul does not die with the body. Weapons cannot hurt the soul. There are specific moral duties and social responsibilities are the key. It's the duty to serve, and social responsibilities have spiritual significance. And if you devote yourself to love and adoration and service to Vishnu, that's going to highly get towards being able to be reincarnated. And what's going to happen is mean, all the same beliefs as before are still going to be there, and Hinduism is going to continue to grow. Here's the important part with Hinduism. Hinduism is going to be basic, where Ashoka is with Buddhism. The Guptas completely become adapters of Hinduism. Buddhism with Ashoka, Hinduism for the Guptas, and they promote it all over the place. To the point by 1000 CE, Hinduism is basically the only religion left in India, and Buddhism has been pushed to the side.